Let's turn the Sony FX3 into the ultimate studio camera that can handle any interview or corporate work that you throw at it. The Sony FX3 is my favorite hybrid camera that has ever been made, but there are a few things that can make it even better, like longer battery life, a bigger external monitor, and a more sturdy top handle when you have it mounted. So I'm gonna show you how to rig it out right now. The first thing we're gonna add is a SmallRig half cage. And the reason I really love this one is because it has an Arca Swiss plate built into the bottom, NATO rail on the side, and a 15mm rod mount on the top. It also leaves the top completely open so you can still mount the FX3 top handle without a cage getting in the way. The next thing we're gonna add is the brand new SmallRig V-mount battery plate. And I was super excited when they announced this because it has pretty much everything that I've been looking for in a V-mount battery plate. First of all, it's extremely slimline, it's light, and it's super compact. It just folds up really small. When you wanna mount it, it's super easy. You just slide it right into place and lock this little lever in the front. And that's it. It's already mounted, which is just so awesome because it's so easy to do. And on the bottom of the plate, it also uses Arca Swiss, but it's bi-directional. So you can slide it on like this, or you can slide it on and off like this. So for those of you that use tripods with Arca Swiss or gimbals that use Arca Swiss, it's gonna be really easy to take your camera on and off. It also has 1/4 20 and 3/8 threads on the bottom. So if you wanna put a Manfrotto 502 plate on there, you can do that as well. Now let's throw a V-mount battery on here, and this is one of the new ones, also from SmallRig, and I really like this one because it has an info display on the front that shows you how much battery life you have left, which this one is at 88%, and it also shows you how much voltage each device is pulling as you start plugging them in. So there are a bunch of different ports on the top here, and so we have 2 barrel connections, one that's 8 volts and 12 volts, and then you have USB-A, which is your basic, and USB-C. Then on the side, you also have right here, your classic D-tap port. Let's get this mounted. So now let me show you how the battery hinge works. So you just loosen this little knob on the side, and then you can drop the entire battery down. And you could run it this way if you want to look at the back of your display, but if you have a flip out display like I do on the FX3, you can easily flip it out, and then you can put your monitor back up and just tighten it back into place. Then of course you can see yourself when you're filming, or you can tilt it back to the side like a lot of guys do, and I also do it this way so I can still see all of my settings here. Another great feature of this V-mount battery plate is that if you don't want it sitting this close to the camera, you can actually adjust it and slide it back. So simply pull this little lever here on the side, that'll release it, and then there's some adjustability there. So I'd say it's about 1 inch, maybe 1.5 inches of adjustability here. So if you want to give yourself just a little bit of space, you can definitely do that. It's not enough space to flip the monitor back in, but that's not a big deal, obviously, because you can just flip it back. There are at least 2 different ways that you can connect the V-mount battery to the camera to power it up. So I'm going to show you both. The first one is by using a dummy battery with a D-tap connection. So this is something that isn't necessarily Sony approved, and you'll actually get a little warning pop-up on the camera when you do this, and you have to approve that you're not using a Sony approved battery. So do this at your own risk. I've done it hundreds of times and had no issues, but if you do this, you want to make sure that you get a reliable dummy battery. So I'm going to insert this here, and the only bummer is that these little battery doors no longer come on and off really easily like they used to on some of the previous Sony models. So I just leave mine hanging down like that, but it doesn't present a problem because it still mounts onto a tripod just fine. Plug it right into the side of the battery. The operation and safety of this battery cannot be guaranteed. Continue use? Okay, I will continue use. And there we go. I've shot many hours and many times with this setup with no issues. So now I'm going to show you the more safe and reliable way that Sony probably recommends. So for this next one, you do need your normal Sony NP-FZ100 battery in the camera. I'll put that back in. And then you simply just need a USB-C cable. So I've got one here, and I'm going to plug it into the top of the V-mount, and then plug it into the side of the camera here in my USB-C port. Now, one of the main reasons that I don't like doing this is because you can see just how far it sticks out, and it's not super secure. So if you accidentally bump it, you might bend the cable, break your port, or have it pop out. It's more of a trickle charge. It isn't completely powering the camera just on its own. It's actually recharging the internal battery. I'm gonna do some cable management a little bit later, so just disregard this. And now that we have the battery on there, let's go ahead and get a lens mounted. What I'm using today is the Sony 16-35 G Master, and really you can use any lens that you want, but this is the one that I chose to go with for our studio setup because it really is just so versatile. Now let's get the top handle on there, and this is the one that comes with the Sony FX3, and it has the dual XLR inputs. And anytime you're shooting in a studio, you really want to use a boom mic or lavaliers if you can, and get them plugged in with XLR so you get the highest audio quality possible. So let's get this on. Now, you may have seen some posts online about the FX3 top handle not being the most robust. Now, I haven't had any issues with it, but I have seen lots of pictures of this top module breaking off, so you definitely want to be careful with it. So there are a few different pieces that you can add to this to make it even more sturdy and robust. The first piece that I add is this long NATO rail that goes directly on top of the handle, and it just screws in with 2 1/4-20 screws. The next thing I add is this extension piece for the top handle. So it makes it a little bit longer so you have more gripping space. And I really like that because the handle does feel a little bit short in the hand. It just uses 1 1/4-20 screw right in the back. So I'll get this screwed into place. And you can see now it's long enough for my entire hand to grip it. All 4 fingers are gripping it instead of hanging off the back. Next, let's add this new piece from SmallRig that adds some real rigidity to this top audio module. And I really like this because it has a couple 1/4-20 threads on the top and a cold shoe mount. So it gives you a few more spots for accessories as well, besides just making this little piece a little bit more sturdy. And it also uses a 1/4-20 thread to mount, and you will need this NATO top rail piece to have a spot for the screw to mount into. There we go. So now you can see just how much more robust and sturdy this top handle is. It feels like it has a lot more strength to it. And now this top audio module is not going to bend forward or break if something heavy is on top of it, because you have this metal accessory now mounted on top to protect it. This next part of the video I had to completely reshoot because my autofocus failed me, and it was focusing on these 3D print masks back here instead of my face, which I realized might be a problem. Maybe I should move those. So anyways, let's continue on with the rig build. The next thing we're gonna add is an external monitor, and what I'm using today is the Ninja V. It also is an external recorder, so everything records onto this SSD, which is 500 gigabytes, so it gives you tons of space for filming. And when you're using the Ninja V, you can record in ProRes RAW, which is the absolute best codec that you can get out of the Sony FX3. So it's definitely worth using if you have one. And what we're gonna use to mount the monitor is this little SmallRig monitor mount that I bought. It was a little bit expensive, but I absolutely love it because it just makes it so easy to take things on and off. Let's get this slid onto the top of the handle here. I'll just tighten it down. And then on my Ninja V, I already have a cage on it. This one is from 8sin, and of course it's great because it protects the monitor, but it also has NATO rail built into the bottom. So it makes it really quick to mount things, take them on and off. So I'm just gonna slide this right on and lock it down. And then now I'll show you how you can just bend this back so you can get a better viewing angle. If you need it to bend back even more, no problem. You can just slide this along the rail wherever you need, and then you can bend it back even more. So there's a lot of versatility there, and you can flip it around if you need to. Maybe you're filming yourself, you can quickly see yourself. So there's just a lot of adjustability to it that's really quick and doesn't require any tools. There are 2 different ways that we can power the Ninja V. One, we could use a standard Sony NPF battery, and that's the easiest way, but it does add a lot of extra weight to the top handle, which I don't want to do because I don't want to apply any extra stress to this top handle than is already there. And another problem you can see is that it's actually hitting into this top module, so you can't bend it back. So we can actually use this little battery plate adapter that comes with the Ninja V. Just mount that on. And then we're gonna grab this barrel connection cable here, and I'm just gonna plug it right in. And to keep it from popping out, I'm actually using a little Mondo ties here on the top of my cage. So I'll just run it through here so that it doesn't accidentally get unplugged. And then I'm plugging it into the 8 volts out on the back of the V-mount battery, and that's enough power to power the Ninja V. There we go. So now both the camera and the Ninja V are all running off of this singular V-mount battery, and we have another accessory we're going to be plugging into that as well. The next thing I'm going to add is a side grip, and this isn't totally necessary, but I love having an extra grip on my camera, especially these wooden ones because they're just so comfortable. This one is also from SmallRig and it uses NATO rail mount. So it's really easy to take on and off because I have NATO on the side of this cage. So I'll just slide that on and tighten it down. There we go. And now it's just so much easier to take the camera on and off of a tripod, or if you're doing some handheld work, obviously you're gonna have much more stable footage having this extra grip. Now, real quick, I think it's worth mentioning that SmallRig did not sponsor this video or pay me to say any of this, but to be fully transparent, they did send out 3 pieces to review, and I've had them here in my rig build. One of them being this V-mount plate, the battery, and then this little top module piece. And to be honest, I was actually gonna buy all these pieces anyway. They've been sitting in my Amazon cart for a while and I just hadn't bought them yet. And then it just so happened that SmallRig reached out and asked me if I would do a review, and I said I would love to. So genuinely, I would buy these parts again. They are really great. And I do gotta make sure we plug in the HDMI cable for the monitor here before I forget. The next accessory I'm gonna add is a wireless transmitter. Now, this isn't totally necessary, but if you're in a studio environment, it's really nice to set up a large external monitor for the clients or the crew to see, and it can be really helpful because you don't want them all huddled around behind the camera. And it's also great if you have a focus puller so he can actually see what he's doing. So I'm gonna mount it with the cold shoe right here on this wooden grip. And this is a great spot for it because it keeps it out of the way of everything else and it still allows me to use the grip. Now we gotta power this up, and you could also use a Sony NPF battery, but I'm trying to keep it light and run it all off one battery. So we're gonna use this barrel connector to D-tap. I'll get this plugged in. And I'll show you how this thing powers up. The final thing we're gonna add here is another HDMI cable so we can loop out of the monitor and then into the transmitter. There we go, and I'll show you how the Ninja V is all powered up, running completely off of the V-mount. Of course, the camera is being charged by USB-C, and then the transmitter itself is also being powered by that D-tap power. So everything, all 3 accessories are running 100% off of this V-mount battery, and I absolutely love that because when this thing eventually dies after a few hours of work, I'm gonna be able to swap it out for another one and get everything plugged right back in. I really love this setup because it just works so well for the studio because you get that all-day battery life, you can see what you're shooting, and you can transmit your image to the director so they can also see what you're getting. If you wanna pick up any of the pieces that I used in this rig build, you can check out all of them in the description below. All right, guys, if you wanna see more videos like this, hit subscribe right now, and I'll see you in the next video.